Installation for window siding and roofing is pretty basic. You tear it all off down to the decking, so you get down to the frame of the house. So actually go back a slide. It's the left button there.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, tear it off down to the framing. It gets some kind of moisture barrier. You install your final product, and then you put on the trim. So codes, go to the next slide. Codes you need to know. Codes you need to know. I always tell customers, here's what's required by code, here's what's recommended. They're not always the same. Okay? Code is kind of the bare minimum you should be doing. The recommended is the manufacturer recommended. Now, a little side note on that. Manufacturers are just as much in the business to make profit as we are, right? So are they going to recommend that you use ice and water around every absolute inch of their house because that's 4 times the price of felt? Sure they are, right? They're going to recommend it. So you got to kind of weed through the bullshit and figure out what's really actually a good idea to do in terms of price and what's not. What would I do on my own house? You can always ask yourself that. Would I do that on my own house? Would I pay for that on my own house? If you think so, then recommend it, and you can truly believe in that. I never want you guys to go out and sell something you don't truly believe in, right? If you don't believe in your product, people see through it right away. So, recommended versus required. So, IRC stands for International Residential Code, and that is actually the code book, the elusive code book that everybody talks about. So, if you guys can't fall asleep at night, you come on into the office here, and you start reading this guy.
UBC.
That's the 2000 version. Right now we're on the 2006. That's the code book. So you can go on there and try and dilly-dally through that thing. There's only a few actual codes that you really even need to know, and I'm going to go through those with you guys. It's always good to throw out a code if you can. It makes you look a little more competent, right? Trust and education. I'm always going to come back to that. The more you can build trust and educate your customer, you're going to win your fair share of the pie. So, HUD is also, you guys know what HUD is?
Host under
Housing and Urban Development.
Yeah.
It's a department of the government that does like the FHA loans, and they run like the Section 8 housing and things like that. They have a little bit stricter guidelines because they're putting renters into those places. So you have to understand some of their codes as well if you're dealing with an investment property owner. For example, like they can't have any busted screens. That's not required by code, but HUD requires it. So you want to kind of know some of those things if you can, if you're going to start working with investment owners. I know a lot of those things only because I'm a licensed real estate agent as well, so that kind of helps out for that. So this is Weather Watch. What Weather Watch is it's ice and water, okay? I don't use the term ice and water typically with customers. I call it leak barrier, right? Again, you're going to dumb it down. So, leak barrier, simply put, and underlayment, is your final protection when water gets through the main product. So when it gets through your siding or gets through your roofing, you're going to run into your moisture barrier, right? The term moisture barrier stands for itself. You guys ever seen a house being built, you see the big Tyvek on the siding?
Yep.
That's the moisture barrier. Tyvek's a brand name. They carry other ones, Green Guard, things like that. Owens Corning carries one too. We usually use the Tyvek. The only time we don't use Tyvek is we use the Hardy wrap behind the Hardy because the Tyvek actually chemically interacts with the Hardy. So we try not to put Tyvek behind it in order to save ourselves a lawsuit. So for the most part, we're using Tyvek on the siding. So you tear everything off, you Tyvek the whole house, you tape all the seams with Tyvek tape where the cuts are, and then you start installing the siding. The siding gets installed from the bottom up, and then the trim goes on. Pretty straightforward. Any questions on how the siding gets installed? So siding from the bottom up. Roofing, same thing, from the edges to the peaks. So from the eaves all the way up to the ridge, it's going to get installed. You tear everything off down to the decking. Decking can be different things. On older homes, the decking is actually the wood decking that you stand on before your roof starts going on. On older homes, it's usually like 1x6s, or 1x8s, 1x10s. That'll be made out of pine. On the newer houses, they're usually using like 4x8 sheets of OSB or CTD 3/4 inch press board. So Ice and water goes around all the eaves. So the code actually, if you were to draw a roof line. So here's my soffit, right? Here's my fascia. And that's spelled F-A-S-C-I-A. Then we got my decking here. And then this is my exterior wall. Okay? So the way... Oh, the term I was fumbling on there, CDX plywood.
I know.
Yeah, help
We
me
knew
out.
that. We're letting you through.
I'm in the limelight here.
We're letting you
Give me a
through.
break. Alright, so there's your basic house when it gets framed in. Your basic soffit framing is going to be out of 1/4-inch plywood. Your fascia board is usually going to be out of pine. And that's going to be either like a 1x4 or 1x6 are real common. Okay? Your exterior wall is going to be made out of 2x4 or 2x6. Then your decking is usually going to be a 3/4-inch thick board, whether that's a 1x and things like that. And you guys all know kind of the rule of thumb, a 1x truly measures 3/4 inch, right? Okay. So you can have an old 1x decking, and if you're patching in, you can use a 3/4-inch CDX plywood or 3/4-inch OSB. Okay. And OSB stands for oriented strand board. And it's basically like they milk up a bunch of strands, they put it in a kiln with a bunch of glue, and it all comes glued together. Typically, OSB is what we're using now for subfloor under hardwood.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I know when you put mine, I put 3/4 sturdy board because with hardwood flooring you don't want to be blowing into OSB because it doesn't hold as well. If you're doing hardwood floor.
Yeah, you can. Yep, I've done it with. It's real common for carpet though too.
Oh yeah, carpet.
Yep.
All the time, but
You got to get the tongue and groove kind for hardwood, so it sticks together a little better. So we got your exterior wall here. The code for ice and water is 24 inches in from the warm wall. So you take the warm side of the wall, okay? You come in 24 inches and you go up vertically to your plane. Okay? Real quick.
Most likely it'd be 2 or 3 strips of ice and water.
Yep. But here's how you determine. So there's a couple of things that go in. Now notice this 24 inches is in the horizontal plane parallel to the ground. Our decking is not. Right? So here's a common mistake that's made. People go, well, this is 2 feet.
yeah.
I got a 12-inch soffit. That's about 3 feet. I can do 1 row, right? And in fact, most inspectors are even going to let that fly. You know, if you got a 6 to 12-inch soffit, most inspectors are going to let you fly. By the way, rolls are always 3 feet wide. Okay? Usually 3 by 50 or 3 by 100. Depending. Okay? Well, that's just not true. In fact, really the only way that you would truly ever be able to do 1 row of ice and water is, let's do the math on it. Assuming like a 412 pitch. We'd have to have 24 times 1.5. That's going to get us a little over 2 feet, right? Like 2.1 feet. So we're at 2.1 feet to here. So I'd have to have an overhang of about, what's 0.9 is what we got left over, divided by our factor for the slope. What's 9 divided by 1.0, or 0.9 divided by 1.05?
0.857.
0.857 times 12 inches.
10.28.
Alright, so if you're on a 412 pitch and your overhang is 10.28 inches or less, then yes, you can do 1 row. Okay? But remember, this number's skewed.
Yeah.
Most houses that have a 6-inch overhang have really steep roofs. Usually they're like 12-12. So now your multiplier is 1.414. Then that only leaves you with about 3 inches that you can be allowed. So if you have like a 12-12 pitch with a 6-inch overhang, you're still doing 2 rows. And the thing is, on 2 rows, from getting from like 2 rows to 3 rows, if you look in the code book, you're required to overlap these now when you put them on. Guess how many inches?
4, isn't it?
It's 4.
4.
It's 4.
And once you overlap 4 inches.
4 inches here, and then from side to side, they want you to overlap 2 inches.
Oh, if you're slicing it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Going sideways, it's 2-inch overlap. But this is actually a 4-inch overlap. So if you got, say, like a 2-foot overhang, we're going to have 2 feet plus 2 feet, 4 feet times your roof pitch. You know, that's going to be your simple measurement.
It's going to be 3 layers.
But then you're going to have to add on 4 inches for every seam. It's usually going to be 2 layers. So here's kind of the rule of thumb to weed through all the bullshit. 3 to 6 inches, you can do 1 row. Okay? 6 to 24, 2 rows. Anything over 24, you got to pull it out. I mean, some of those big overhangs, basically you're going to do the entire overhang plus another row. So that's how you can think of it.
Some houses where you got the elongated entryway that's outside?
Yep.
And the warm wall is actually like 5 feet in.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That entire thing's going to be ice and water up to 2 feet inside the warm wall.
That's what I'm saying. So you got those type of roofs where, like, let's say your garage, or your house, let's just say your house, and then your entryway is along that wall, but it's outside, and all you got is got pillars.
Yep.
You're going to have, or a porch.
That whole thing's going to be ice and water.
Yeah, like a porch you sit on.
Yep, like a porch overhang.
Yeah, you got
the whole
12 feet that you got to be...
Yep, so the whole thing's going to be ice and water. Basically what ice and water is taking like a 15-pound felt, putting 3 layers of it together, and then modifying it so that it's all one piece, and then adding in some liquid asphalt. So they actually refer to it as like modified bitumen rubber.
Yeah.
Which, obviously, you never want to pull that out on a homeowner.
Dip it in some tar.
But, you know, that's the basic thing. So I encourage you to read about the leak barrier. The Weather Watch is the GAF one that I like to do. Remember, for the GAF warranty, you have to put 3 GAF accessories on. This is the one that I always sell. If you flip to the back side of that brochure, it's going to show you a sample house there. All the common areas. So you can see they got the 2 rows down at the eaves, the little dormer kick out there. Anytime you got a dormer, the whole dormer's gone. Okay? Anytime you got a valley, we're going to run 1 row up the valley.
Each side?
No, the code is 18 inches off center.
Underneath the steel valley?
Underneath the, steel valley. Correct. And most of the valleys now we're doing
aluminum.
Yep. But the code's 18 inches off center, so if you got 18 times 2, that's 3 feet. You can run your roll up the center, you're good to go. Just make sure you get it on center. Another real common place that people don't use the stuff when they're building a house, and they really should be, is at that roof wall intersection. If you look at that garage there, see where that roof meets up with the wall?
Oh yeah.
That's one of the best spots to put it, right? It's a leak barrier. Think of where are you going to get your leaks? You're going to get your leaks at any intersections between 2 planes on the roof, right? Mm-hmm. Isn't that probably one of the ones where you're going to get a lot of water?
Are you talking the small one or the big one? Or
the big one, where the vertical wall and the roof come together. It's usually where like a garage runs into the house.
Yeah. It looks like a valley, but it's not.
Yeah, it's actually a 90-degree.
Yeah, no, but I'm talking because you got a small one right here too.
That's actually a valley.
Yeah.
Right here. On the opposite side of this, because the garage.
Oh, right, yeah. It's not shown in the picture, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And then any of your pop-outs, so where like vents go in and things like that, you're going to want ice and water there too. Now, my recommendations for additional places and where GAF for our certified contractor zones really going to want us to put them is going up the rake ends.
I got a question.
Don't you get water? Yeah. Hang on a second. Don't you get water coming in the rake ends from wind-driven rain?
Yeah.
Right? But people don't put ice and water on the rake ends.
No, not at all.
And I think, I mean, if I had a house with gables, then I would definitely be running it up those rake ends. So in the photo, what I'm talking about here, guys, is I would run a row up there.
Yep, underneath your row.
Because then when you get wind's going to pick the shingles up a little bit.
Yeah.
If it gets in there, at least, remember, this is your final protection before you wood.
And then you need extra cost.
Even if you run cut-off shingles or up that? You done that before?
Yeah, yeah.
The top
even if you run like a starter strip up there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you'd still put it underneath that?
Which,
it's a lot easier.
Sometimes we do that. Sometimes we'll run the starter up there because it's easier to cut your shingles straight. But it depends. You can do it with an architectural shingle just fine. With 3-tab, though, you see kind of that little hump.
Yeah.
Usually you can't do it with 3-tab. I don't let my guys do it with 3-tab. With Timberlines or luxury, no problem. Go ahead.
So then we charge extra for running up the rake.
Yep. So I would just kind of explain that to a customer again. Sell value.
Yeah.
Okay? Attention to detail. Most other contractors aren't going to talk about the ventilation system or running ice and water up the rake ends or anything like that. You can just be like, this isn't required by code, but honestly, I'd do it on my house. You start talking about, doesn't it make sense if you get wind-driven rain in there that you would want the best leak barrier you have available in that spot? Mm-hmm. For an extra $150, Miss Jones, I can run it up your 2 rake ends. Is that something you'd want me to do? Yeah. Okay, great. So you're taking notes like that. That's also going to help you price condition people. If you start giving them a couple recommendations like that and they're constantly saying no, this person's really price conscious. If they're more concerned about getting a long-term job, they're going to be like, yeah, $150. Think about it, guys. I would definitely do it on my own house. So.
I had a question about going back to windows. Would you ice one of the windows too?
We use what's called flex wrap.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I mean.
It's pretty much the same stuff. Absolutely.
You wrap all the openings.
You run flex wrap around all the openings. Yep. So you run your bottom piece first, then your sides, and then your top.
Yeah, but then when you put the window in, you put it across the top of the window?
What you would run your tie back over that and then tape that seam.
Oh, okay. Yep. So that ice and water.
Yep. Well, and then you're going to have your drip cap too.
Yeah.
Yep. So your drip cap.
We built or remodeled houses and built houses where we put the window in and we just put the tape over top of that and then put the tie back on it.
The tie back usually goes on first, wraps inside the window case, the rough opening. Window goes on, and then your taping goes on.
Yeah, then your flex wrap goes on. Yep. So typically
on the outside of the window.
Yeah.
Yeah. So typically you're going to run your tie back in. You're going to run that in the rough opening of the window.
Oh, that's
staple it.
Yep. Yeah.
Then your window is going to slide in with your flanges.
Yep.
Okay. And what you're going to do at the top, though. What you're going to do at the top, though. So on the sides and the bottom, your tie back's behind your window flanges. Mm-hmm. On the top, you notch out, kind of at a 45-degree angle. You slip your drip cap up under it, and then you're going to tape that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to run your rubber strip at the bottom. And then you're going to run your sides, and then you're going to run your top.
Yeah.
And that'll be a perfectly airtight seal. You're never going to have problems.
And then the water comes in, it comes out, runs, and runs out.
Yep.
So.
That's
we actually have a video of that. Randy doing a window install last year where he did that exact process at the home show in front of a crowd. So that'd be a good one to watch too. All right. You can see in the picture here, that's the deck armor. That's their synthetic felt, 6 times stronger than felt. So the entire roof area needs a moisture barrier, except for the leak. The leak barrier areas. Those are the strongest protection. For the rest of the roof, unless you're going to ice and water the whole roof, which can get really expensive, you're probably looking at using one of the 3 common leak barriers.
You don't know who I know.
The common leak barriers are 15-pound felt, 30-pound felt, which is twice as thick, and then synthetic felt, which in this case we use the GAF deck armor as the brand name there. Okay. So 15-pound felt 9 times out of 10 is what your customer is going to go with. Mm-hmm. What I strongly encourage you to do is cut off a little piece of that felt, get a little water on it, cut off a little piece. They have these little deck armor samples over at United. Go in there and go through the whole spiel of them. When they're like, well, everybody else is bidding 15-pound felt, you whip out your samples, and you're like, well, here's the 15-pound felt. Take a feel. They're going to start feeling it and be like, wow, it actually cracks in half, and it's pretty much paper. It's paper, guys. It's a paper that gets dipped in liquid asphalt. And that's it. That's what it is. So If water gets through those shingles, guess what's going to happen to your felt? You're going to start crinkling. You're going to start getting lots of issues with it. Okay? The water goes right through this stuff pretty much. It's almost useless. 30 pounds a little better, but the synthetic, I'm telling you, is 600 times stronger. It's basically like a Tyvek that's formulated for the roof. I mean, this stuff is really cool. It's super breathable, whereas a 15-pound felt is not. The stuff is way better than 15-pound felt. You can see on the price guide, if you go back to the roofing section, the 30-pound felt product for GAF, I believe, is the Shingle Mate. If you look at your extended warranty, the roof deck protection, the deck armor is the synthetic, the Shingle Mate is a 30-pound felt. If you go with a 15-pound felt, then you would not qualify in this category. Okay? Now, the leak barrier, we're using the Weather Watch there. Okay? So we're good. The starter strip, we use the GAF Pro Start starter. So we're good there. We're going to use the 750 box vents typically, the basics. So unless you're doing a ridge vent, you would qualify here if you were. If not, you would not. But we always use the TimberTex ridge cap. I always tell people on, you know...
Is that the pre-cut ones?
Yeah. Sometimes people want to go with like a cheap ridge cap. It's like, would you spend $5,000 on a painting and then not spend another $200 to do a nice frame with it?
Well, that's just like what we used to just...
You know, it's what frames out... Well, for 3-tab, yeah. So for a 3-tab roof, what you actually do is you cut the tabs, so you cut the shingles into sets of 3, and then you run them out. So... That's all 3-tab. That's the extent of a 3-tab ridge cap, and that's why 3-tab roofs have problems, right? Because you have 1 layer protection. Now you pull out a TimberTex thing, it's 3 layers thick. So you get actually 3 times the protection, and it's only $2 more per linear foot, so it's 100 times better. If you're doing a 3-tab roof, though, you sell the 3-tab ridge. If you're doing a Timberline roof, you do the TimberTex ridge cap. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's kind of optional for you. I always offer to the customer, if you don't actually show them band samples and you try just giving them a brochure, 100 times out of 100 they're going to go with a 15-pound felt. So if you want to do a little bit of upsell in there, you can. You can see on the roofing price guide, if you get into that, it'll have the changes. Going the wrong way. See the adjustments down there? So if our pitch gets above 712, we got to make adjustments to the price for labor because it's harder. So those are your adjustments for labor there. So how much more would we add per square if we had a 12-12 pitch?
$10 each.
Yep.
Per square, so
$50 a square, right?
Yeah.
We got 12 minus 7. So you start at 7. So if it was 812, you'd be $10 more a square. So we're about $10 a square per inch over 7 inches. Chimney flashing for a small little chimney, which would be like a 2 foot by 2 foot or smaller, it's going to run about $250. Okay. For a big chimney, those run about $400. The drip edge should not say subtract. I changed that. So this $390 price, I used to do it where I'd go in, I'd offer the whole package with the deck armor and the whole 9 yards at $390, and then I'd work them down, kind of like Casey was talking about today, and like I was talking about, showing the best car on the floor, and that works in a lot of ways. But what ends up happening is if you haven't built all the value in, they're just looking at the price compared to the other 3 bids they got, and everybody else is bidding the 15-pound felt and all the cheap bullshit accessories with no extended warranty. Price yourself out of the market real quick. So I'm going to go back to doing it at 3 1/4. So you can still offer the luxury shingle, but I'm going to offer for each shingle package the basic package within that category. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you still want to start them off with kind of the Timberline 30, and if they don't want to do that, move them down to a 3-tab, and then kind of leave them with one of the luxury shingle brochures. or even ask them, you know. But the reality is, most people can't afford the luxury shingles. But it's all going to depend on your neighborhood, right? If you're in a neighborhood with a lot of cedar shakes and stuff, pull out the luxury shingles right away. If you're in a little rambler neighborhood with all 3 tabs, probably wasting your time talking about, you know, some Grand Malarkey shingles. So, I'd start them with the Timberline 30 years and let them downgrade. You could price it out. Most common is going to be your Royal Sovereign 3-tab versus your Timberline 30. The System Plus warranty, then you're going to add $1.25 there. $30 per box vent if you need additional venting to get them to code. Remember the 1 in 300 rule. $50 per soffit vent if they need more intake. Remember, it should be split half and half. $20 per layer for extra layer tear-off. So if they have like 3 layers on their roof, you're going to charge $40 more per square. And then the 30-pound felt, the shingle mate, you're going to add 10 a square for the...
They all say subtract, is that okay?
Yeah, remember we're switching it, so change them back to add.
I just thought you were switching all of them for that one.
Yep. And then, so it should actually say use 15-pound, or the first one's right. The second one changed, use 15-pound felt to use deck armor.
So 15 pound turned into deck armor?
Yep. Add 20 for deck armor. And then remember we talked about adding the ice and water at the rakes and across the ridge? That's $3 per foot there.